Hello all, how fare thee? I hope thou is well. Today I will be reading a story my friend wrote called Russian Roulette. Take a deep breath, take the gun, and pull the trigger. That's what he told me as he loaded the Nagant M1895 revolver, then spun the cylinder. I took the gun from his hands, praying as our eyes connected, put the revolver to my head, closed my eyes, and pulled the trigger, but there was no bang. I opened my eyes and handed him the gun as our eyes met once again. He put the revolver to his head with a confident look in his eyes. It's like he knows it's not going to go off. He pulled the trigger with a small smirk on his face. It didn't go off. He slid the revolver across the table and it landed right in front of my hand. I picked it up and put it back to my head as a tear streamed down my face. I pulled the trigger once again, and it didn't go off. I held out the gun for him, and he grabbed it, then put it on the table, looked down at the revolver, then back up at me. I know thou grew up with all sorts of guns, and thou probably don't know much about this revolver, do thee? He asked, smirking, as I sat there in silence. Since it looks like thou don't, I'm going to tell thou a bit about this beautiful piece. He leant forward a little and spoke. To start off, this revolver was designed in 1886 by Emily and Leon Nagant, hence the reason why it's called the Nagant. Anyway, the revolver is a 7-shot gas seal revolver, which Leon designed and produced for the Russian Empire. The Nagant M1895 was chambered for a proprietary cartridge, 7.62 times 38mm rounds, and featured an unusual gas seal system in which the cylinder would move forward when the gun was cocked, to close the gap between the cylinder and the barrel, providing a boost to the muzzle velocity of the fired projectile and allowing the weapon to be suppressed, which is an unusual ability for a revolver. There were other designs for the revolver, but I won't tell thou about those. This weapon was used in a lot of wars. Wars like World War One, Chinese Civil War, World War Two, etc., etc. Oh, and there was about 2 million of them made. Also, did thou know its firing range is about 50 yards, which, if thou were to hold it up to someone's head, it would probably leave a big mess for the other to clean up. He laughed as he grabbed the gun and put it to his head. He pulled the trigger and yelled, "Bang!" I jumped back a little when he leaned back laughing. "Thou was so easy to scare," he said in a giggly voice. He then leant forwards, holding out the gun. I sat there, my eyes wide open and my mouth hung as I couldn't stop myself from looking into his dark brown eyes. "Thou gonna grab it? Or does thou want me to do it?" He stopped talking as he pointed the gun to my head. "It's as easy as 1, 2." I held my breath and shut my eyes as he pulled the trigger. 3. I opened my eyes. "Thou were a lucky one. Most of the people I played with got out on their first or second turn." He pulled the gun away from my head and placed it on the table. "What does thou mean, others?" I said quietly after letting out a small sigh of relief. "Oh, so thou can talk." He sat up and crossed his arms. "I've played this game many, many times, but for most of the people I've played with, it was their first and last time playing." He had an evil-looking grin on his face as he picked up the gun, putting it to his head. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, a masked man walked into the darkish room. "I'm sorry to intrude, but it's here." The masked man quickly walked out and closed the door. "I'm sorry, but we will have to continue this when I get back." The brown-eyed man got up out of his seat and walked out the room with the gun in his hand. I heard the sound of the metal door locking behind me. I thought to myself, how did I even get into this mess? And then I leaned back and looked up at the roof. Oh yeah, it was to protect them. I whispered to myself as tears filled my eyes. I wonder if Mother and Father are okay. I hope they're following their part of the deal, I thought while I sat back up using my clothing to wipe my eyes. I sat in silence thinking of happy memories from when I was a child, but then I heard the door unlock and the man walked back in. Where were we? He laughed, pulling out the gun. How are my parents? I asked. He put the gun to his head. Well, looks like they died from their injuries. Then he pulled the trigger, but nothing happened. My eyes filled with tears as he handed me the gun. I looked down at the gun and whispered, then there's no reason for me to live any longer. I put the gun to my head and thought, I'm sorry, Mother, Father. I love thou both so much. I'll see thou both soon. Everything was silent as a tear streamed down my face. The room echoed in a loud bang. The brown-eyed man smiled as the now lifeless body hit the ground. Let in the next one, he yelled as he got up and grabbed the gun off of the ground. Oh, and clean this up. I want this spotless before we start our game. The metal door swung open and the masked man pushed an old woman into the room. She screamed at the sight of the body. After a few seconds, she burst into tears when she realized it was the body of her daughter. He looked over at the woman and said, Let's play a game. All thou hast to do is take a deep breath, take the gun, and pull the trigger. Thank you all for listening. I hope thou enjoyed. I am really, really tired, so if this sounded off compared to my normal reading, I'm very sorry, but I was trying my best. I'm running on 2, maybe 3 cans of monster drinks to try and keep awake right now. But yeah, I hope thou enjoyed. Until next time. Farewell for now.